Alrighty, quick update on bug fixing and builds. I'm the build bitch while Bryce is away, and during that time we got 433 out the door and 4.4 milestone 4 as well, which was quite nerve-wracking but okay in the end. I just wanted to say thank you to James because he got the TPM stable builds green again. They've been red for quite a while now. The last two builds are in progress, and I'm willing to claim the victory already. So.
Were they legitimate failures? Or?
Yes, they were. Yep, and they were fixed up by James. So just a quick recap. Previous iteration, A team got through 30 issues, and for Dream Team, previous iteration was 14 and 20.
It's a typing mistake.
And today at 9 AM, I was a bit worried. We had 3 issues completed and 12 in progress. But
Multitasking, Brad.
thanks to Darius, who got a lot of dotting done, and one by Oswaldo as well. Got it up to 8, which is great considering we had public holidays during that time. So you can see the... Where's my arrow? No arrow! Damn, okay. That's a fail. No, I meant my pointer. So that big red blob is the waiting QA, so it's quite big this iteration. So I'm looking forward to having Oswaldo back because he tends to keep the waiting QA poll quite low, which is always great. And that is about it from me. So we can see that 433 went out the door, and it sort of took a bit longer than other releases, but that was mainly due to the public holidays. In terms of milestone 5, we've got a green CI build, which is great. Thank you very much. And we've got 12 failures for Selenium, so I'm going to go off now and work out whether we care about them or not. I might drag a couple of people out of the meeting. If I need a hand. Not yet, because people have been putting in fixes and I've had fixed tests and failed tests as well. So yeah, that's it from me. Any questions? No? Good.
Actually, yeah, I suppose the
Studio.
what I was doing with what I was doing was the cherry picking of JIRA 9 into Studio, and the status of that is I cherry picked it and it sort of worked, but it wasn't worth the effort in terms of it's far too much effort to cherry pick stuff out the way we currently develop. We either have to decide in future whether we're going to feature branches or whether we roll out some mechanism to track features through issues. But, I mean, the fundamental problem is you just can't identify all the check-ins that are associated with JIRA 9. And even when you can, the dependencies, the stuff that's been checked in for other stuff that breaks it are just too big, and it just rapidly becomes horrible. And then even when you've rolled all that out, you find that half the stuff you did in dev speed breaks it as well. By the end of the second day, I wanted to be jumped off the top of the building. But eventually I got the func test and the Selenium test for JIRA 9 passing. And it had no signs of ignite. Well, actually that's not 100% true, one sign of ignite.
So is there input for further discussions?
There's a blog post I did, and there's a page I've done where I've put it all up. It's doing the rounds, people will comment on it. And, you've got Don Brown's page where he's merrily marching ahead with his plans for global conquest and how we're going to sort of develop for JIRA in future. I think, yeah.
So you running this, Bud? Moving to 5.0 or?
Don's future conquests are in the long term. There's a medium term strategy, which is pretty much what we're doing now. Our milestones effectively, so the wave model, which is our milestones as frequently as we can make them or want to make them, will be the inputs into Studio. So we will be able to deploy at that rate.
What's the wave model?
Yeah, so it's kind of like that, or like that, however you want to slant it. But we're developing here, and what's going into studio is over here, like a month behind or a week behind or whatever it is. So there's an ongoing wave as opposed to cherry picking, which is multi-directional.
If you don't cherry pick features, you get all the features that have happened in the last 2 weeks.
In a wave, in a continuous rolling wave.
That's more
the way we do it,
but stuff like that.
And then, and it will be up to us to ramp that up as fast as we can, but there's a natural limit to that, and at which point you want feature branches or cherry picking or something like that. But that's in the medium to long term.
So our wavelength at the moment is 7 weeks.
Our wavelength a couple of
12
months
weeks.
ago was 6 months. If we can get that down to 1 month or 2 weeks, then that'd be awesome.
Yep. So we've been working on getting the JIRA application properties file into the UI. So what we've done is we've moved it into a jpm.xml file that lives inside the JIRA home. So JIRA.applications now will be empty except for JIRA home property. And we have included approximately 9-10 bits of UI into the advanced settings UI screen. Initially we were using the Frother's new table, but we figured that we ran out of time, so we've just gone with the most basic edit. So what happens is... Ooh.
That's very easy to get it.
Focus. Because every other key is bound if you're not focused.
Yep. So say we've changed it to something that's not the default, you will actually have a revert button there, so you know that it's not the default. And then when you revert, it'll go back to the default. So in the jpm.xml file, there's plenty of metadata. So if it's editable, does the property itself need to be reloaded? Does JIRA need to be reloaded for the property for the change to take effect? And descriptions. And we actually did have pretty names for the keys, but we decided that since it's an advanced settings, we'll just keep it as keys to, in a sense, warn people that you really need to know what you're doing.
So all of those properties are stored in the database?
Yes.
Yeah, those 9 properties are stored in the database, and all of those properties are reloadable. So we don't show anything that only takes effect after restart.
Oh.
Is that new, or have we always been able to look them up in the database?
We always have been able to, but we hadn't so far. We could have just added them to the general configuration and made that even longer.
So like in general configuration, where it goes web work max upload limit or something, that's an application property.
So there are 140 odd properties that we don't edit in the UI, and we've chosen these on the basis of feedback from studio support and what customers want to edit, and they can't currently edit it without a support request right now, so that's part of the driver for this.
And this is sysadmin only?
Yes, it's under web sudo.
Is this something you do want to
XSRF?
send to other properties?
Sorry?
Hang on, sysadmin only or admin only?
Sysadmin.
Because
That won't help
if
studio.
it's still
Help studio
requires
support who the requests come from.
But that means that a studio support
Studio
person-
support don't need to log into the box
Yeah.
and restart, so they can go and change.
But they're happy that they're the ones who have to click the buttons rather than we hand it over to
It's
the
not-
user to click the buttons.
It's not just to help studio support, but studio support have identified these properties as things that customers frequently want to change.
Right, but the customer still can't change them.
But the majority of
Studio
customers are behind the
customers can't.
firewall customers who will be able to.
So is this table not the table that
We're not using what we initially worked on.
This is a Chris table.
Yes.
This is Chris control.
Chris
is
not
Peggy
want to name
control.
something after yourself, Chris. We won't that.
No, I know, it's Peggy control.
No.
You said that the JIRA properties file only needs to contain JIRA home now, but it can contain whatever, can't it?
Well, it
It's
can,
made for
but
them.
we'll ignore
Or
everything.
existing installations, for example, will, if they copy over their old,
We've got an upgrade task.
if they use the upgrade.
No,
Upgrade.
no,
Upgrade
Upgrade
task.
task.
Once you start a new version of JIRA, it reads the old when you're defining it,
Keep track of markers, whatever you want to do.
So we spent
so
most
many
of
configuration.
yeah.
Even more now.
Yeah. We spent this iteration mostly working on dates, because when we retrofitted time zone awareness into the JIRA codebase, funny things started to happen with date. So fields that contain only dates and no specific hour, because you can't really convert them from one time zone into another. So Felix is going to create an issue here. And what we decided is that dates will always be just handled basically as a string, so there's going to be no conversion of due dates and date custom fields. If you put the 10th of May,
Firefox.
It's a bug in Firefox.
there's a bug in the pop-up.
Yeah.
You can just type it
You
in.
just typed it out.
Yeah, you're right.
I think, does it say the format? Slash month, yeah. Slash. So this user has selected the Sydney time zone. He just updated the due date, the 11th May. Do you have the other window open?
I was just sorry. Sorry. Is
Just do a Chrome window or
yeah,
something.
where's Chrome on this thing? Is that in here? Down the bottom. Sorry. Safari, thanks.
Oh, it's my Chrome.
It's not support browser.
Yes, it is, isn't it? Yes, it is.
Yes.
Yes. Last release. Latest version of Chrome.
So if you open up the same issue, we should see the same date. Nothing too surprising there. But that wasn't what was happening before.
So so that in Berlin now, it's not the 2nd.
Sorry.
Is that true? Is it Monday still in Berlin or something? Is it?
Probably not anymore now.
Oh, okay.
That doesn't matter.
But even if it was Monday, you'd still see the 2nd.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, the next thing was the history.
So
No,
let's change this one.
Oh yeah, change it to next date. Now before I don't know if you guys remember, but the before and after values in the history were basically what was written in the database. And once you put time zones in the mix, it got kind of confusing because it would show you whatever you entered in your time zone. It doesn't really apply to dates, but it would also show you in the wrong locale, basically. If you entered it like May in German, and then I looked at the history with my English locale, I would see May in German in the after value. So that's something that we fixed. Yeah. Yeah, it's a locale is different, yeah.
But what if there's old data in there? You just dislabeled it.
All data is unchanged because we had to change the storage format. So it only applies to new changelog entries. Okay. So now you can edit the date time custom field. We got 1 minute left.
It's broken as well.
Do it in Safari.
Yeah.
Still the same. Presented.
Why doesn't old data?
Stored differently.
Because in the changelog, it's only stored as a string, not as database.
It's broken in Safari as well.
That makes sense.
Just type it again.
Sorry, in the changelog, it's stored differently.
Okay, so with the date time custom field, we can actually convert the time zone. So if Felix opens up the issue in the guy who is in Sydney in his browser, it should be adjusted. Yeah, it actually lands on the same day this time, but obviously if it were a different day, it would have been shifted. And the history, if we look at the history, you should be able to see it. Yeah, so that's,
sorry.
You typed in 11, right?
Yeah.
In German.
If you go to the Firefox window and look at the history.
Yeah. Is it already in here?
It's there already. It
Okay,
says 7
sorry.
p.m.
Nice.
Yeah. And, okay, now just edit it. Yeah. Well, basically, if you edit it as the second user, like bump up 1 hour, it will
Okay.
just work.
So that means with this browser.
is presented in your terms, right?
Yes, both in the history and in the dates block.
Yep, very cool.
Finished up. Yeah,
Okay.
it's over basically. Yeah.
Louis, what happens if the other guy who lives in Germany edits the date again? Is it assumed that
Whatever
it's the new date in his time zone?
A date only?
Or, well,
if you write 15th of May, it's going to be 15th.
at 10 p.m.
That's in his time zone.
In his
Yeah.
time zone.
We call that a date
It's a
time.
day only? No.
Sorry.
Okay.
Days in the thing about time zone. Dates always date times always do.
Yeah.
Why did we make that decision again? Why this?
I'll explain after here if you want.
Okay.
Yeah.
Even though we only got 4 minutes.
It's not about
simplicity.
we.
It's
It's a bit what we do already, basically.
Yeah.
It's a big concept.
Can you guys show me trouble?
Comes in late, starts asking questions.
Good to go?
Good to go.
Okay. 18.
Okay, so obviously the Ignite guys have done a fantastic job of making Ignite look all lovely and wonderful, but unfortunately JIRA's legacy admin layout is a bit dubious, to say the least. So I've basically been playing around with jumping down the rabbit hole that is JIRA form and restyling current existing templates and layouts of the various forms in JIRA to try and make them look a little bit more Ignite-y.
Is that JIRA wide or just in the admin section?
It'll be JIRA wide. But most of the JIRA forms are only in admin. Most of the ones around view issue and things like that have already been AUified. So these aren't AUification of the forms, they're design styling changes, so they're not structural changes. So a lot of the forms still have table layouts. The tables I have changed these tables over to use an AUI class, but the actual structure of the tables, it's a table, so it's not too much of a problem. I have changed the HTML and the markup on these, so they're now actually unordered lists rather than just spans separated with a hard-coded pipe. So these are now styled with the piping and everything, so if we ever decide to turn them into actions, drop-downs, little cog menus, things like that, it'll be much easier to just flip those over rather than having to restyle them again, or rather recode them again. I have only done JIRA form and a little bit of some of the other templates like JIRA table and things like that. I haven't started playing around with the grid styling, so you will still see some piss yellow and alternating grey-yellow tables hanging around. I'm going to get to those as I can, because the basic goal is to remove all of that styling and get all our tables looking like this as soon as possible. Once we're looking like that, we'll then go through and start tidying up individual forms, because there's a lot of forms which are very custom and bespoke which need to be looked at because they just don't make any sense at the moment. Just changing the styling over, they just look a bit lost. So some of them will need to be looked at individually and given a bit of styling treatment. Where's our fearless design team?
Do you have a list?
Not at the moment, I don't. Once I've been through and done as many of the grids and things like that, I'll pretty much go through almost page by page and just try and compile an obvious list. I mean, there's various things. There's design patterns that we'd like to introduce. There's a lot of things which could be put into dialogues. There's a lot of things that could be shifted over to Frother's RESTful table, which would be really nice for editing a lot of our tables. And we also need a good sort of wizard-like template that we can use for stepped processes. We've got several 1, 2, 3, 4 step processes that we can move over into a nice wizardy kind of structure once we have one. There's one that the DevTools guys have used that Jake came up with that I might try and play with, but if we can't come up with anything from anybody else in Atlassian, we'll come up with our own and take it from there.
Do we know if Studio depends on any of the things that we've made changes to?
They'll see it.
So we as part of this project admin rewrite, we are going to spend some time making sure that the studio admin section still looks and works correctly, right? And the other idea is also that we are going to look at pages that are linked from Ignite, sort of with higher priority than other pages, just to make sure that I guess story works better, right? So if you're jumping from Ignite back to an old page to change your workflow scheme or whatever, you don't sort of go into a PCLO page.
If anything, it changes the Sharpie's done one of less impact on the studio because you're just stripping stuff out, not really adding stuff or taking stuff out. So hard-coded PCLO.
So Sharpie, you're going to want a big blitz test on this because
at some point
we upgraded ours as well, so
I wouldn't do them together, to be honest.
You wouldn't?
No, I'm not finished yet. And also, just one very, very quick thing, I know I'm out of time, but Mike Cannon-Brooks highlighted that our buttons were starting to look a little bit old and dated. So I'm just playing around a little bit with using our sort of toolbar buttons. I don't think the styling on this is strong enough at the moment. I think they need to be a bit darker, a bit more noticeable to use this kind of button for our buttons. But
that would
replace default browser input buttons. I'm not sold on the idea at the moment personally, but I mean it's quick enough to change. Take this out.
The problem is they're just so ugly in Windows.
These don't look too bad in Windows.
That's cool.
So is this checked in, Sharpie?
A lot of it is, yes. The buttons aren't, and probably won't be for the moment. I'm just, as I say, I'm now working on individual sort of PCLO grid kind of hard-coded BG calls, getting rid of those. He actually likes how this is looking, so this is good.
I'll also be checking bulk pages and move pages.
Alright, so the main... just to start off, some of the less wow factor, I guess, stuff that we've done is we've got integrated things like the issue types and notifications and issue security, and they all use the I guess interface pattern of having a link for editing and a link for changing stuff. Also worked on the workflows tab. So we've got a table to describe the workflow as well as a graph.
CSS.
Can you show this one earlier?
One more time.
Thanks to Sean. It'll show you sort of what other projects are sharing the same workflow, and you can sort of collapse them as well.
That's CSS as well.
So yeah, we do actually have a new design for this that we'll be incorporating in this next iteration, but it's fairly similar to this, but even more sexier.
Okay.
I can just recommend get Ross to design everything you do. He does a really nice job.
So we don't have that scheme.
Sorry.
That same issue. Notifications and issue types UI pattern here.
We're not doing that anymore. Oh, what, the edit?
So the location is
yes, we do.
Next to workflows.
Yeah, we're
yes, we do.
moving towards this scheme.
Neither are final. There is a final one.
But we'll concentrate on one, and one will be applied to that.
A quick dumb question, like this I guess confirm for me that you're moving what is currently on far left navigation across the top. Is that what I heard?
We're not.
So
18 is.
Okay, right. So we're not going to have three layers of left.
That's going to go here.
I thought so. I just wanted to like.
Do you want to show the people tab as well?
Oh yeah, I'm getting there. Screens tab. We've got this same layout here. Oops, hang on, and back to the people tab. So we have a RESTful table here, and it also has frother controls inside it, so you can go and add your users.
Just flick around when you save.
Hey, can we put that on every screen? Flip.
Yeah, other one.
for 1 minute, but we'll let you continue just because it's so sexy.
Yeah, the other thing that Frother has been working on. So just to go back to the original one, we've got, if you want to add a component, you have to kind of know your username before you can add it. See, it's terrible.
The problem is that we're generating it on the client side using soy templates, so we don't actually have the infrastructure there needed to turn that into a user picker that we use everywhere else.
Yeah. It's a single select, so you can.
This is Nevada, people. Hang on.
Is that checked in?
No.
When is it going to be checked in?
Why didn't they show their avatar on the list?
Because this particular user doesn't have an avatar. It's a broken image link, but anyone else, so George,
They've got an avatar, but the image
has an
is
avatar.
in the JIRA
This
name, right?
user picker
Yeah.
too then.
How does that run when you
So
got
this is a single select for the control.
Everything is logical.
It's the exact same user picker. It talks to a REST interface.
Yeah. All right.
So yeah, that's going to appear everywhere in JIRA.
Next.
Okay,
That's
that
it.
it?
Yep.
Cool.